Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the bye week. No potential heartbreak or heart attacks this week. It's kind of nice. And it gives us some time to talk some big picture. So, a question I've been asked a lot is, has Coach Napier's seat cooled any? This video is presented by BetUS. So let's get into it. Okay, so Billy handily takes care of Kentucky. This defense is playing light years ahead of where they were prior to the first bye week. The team's playing cohesively. DJ Lagway's your starter. So has this cooled Coach Napier's seat a little bit? And I think the answer is kind of yes and no. Yes, because I think had Coach Napier lost to UCF or lost to Kentucky, there's a decent chance he wouldn't be the coach at the University of Florida right now. But I think beating the teams you're supposed to beat, UCF and Kentucky, playing really close against a top 10 team in Tennessee. And yeah, I think he is on track to continuing to lower that temperature. But it's about to get really, really hot schedule-wise, right? We are getting into the meat of Florida's schedule, which has widely been referred to as the toughest schedule in the country. I have said since the summer that I believe 6-6 buys Coach Napier another year. I still believe that to an extent, but I do think that there's some nuance involved in that. So let's say Florida plays Georgia in 2 weeks and Georgia just absolutely spanks the Gators. I don't think this is going to happen. This is a hypothetical. Let's say that Florida's not competitive in this game at all. It resembles the Miami and the Texas A&M game at the beginning of the season. And then they go to Texas and the same thing happens, right? You're just not competitive in either of those games. Even though those are not games that the Gators are expected to win, more than likely will not win, games that we marked as L's at the beginning of the season, I do think not being competitive in them will turn the heat up on his seat. It's a lot about how you look, not necessarily the win-loss at the end of that game. Basically what that would mean is that Florida would be in a spot where they've beaten the teams they should beat and they've lost to anybody with a pulse, right? They were not competitive in that game against Miami. There was not a single second sitting in that stadium where I felt like we were in it. Same thing for Texas A&M. Not the case at all in the Tennessee game, but coaching is what lost us that game. So your players are hyped, they're jacked, they're playing the way we wanted them to play against Miami and Texas A&M, but now you coached them out of a win, right? Those are the three toughest teams that you have played so far, and you didn't pass those tests. I ultimately do believe that this administration will look for reasons to keep Coach Napier. And I think if he gets a win somewhere between Georgia and Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, if he figures out a way to steal one of those and he beats Florida State, he's 6-6, and more than likely he has saved his job. Now, I think that let's say LSU loses, here on out, and we decide that they're just a barely above 500 team, or the same thing happens to Ole Miss, and then Florida barely beats them. Essentially, all your wins will be against teams that aren't good. Then you couple that with the fact that Florida is sitting with currently the 51st recruiting class in the country. And this is the part where I remind you that we decided to give up an elite game day play caller in lieu of in favor of an elite recruiter. Dan Mullen never had a class ranked 51st in the country. And I don't blame recruits at this point. I also don't really blame Florida at this point. Kids commit to winners. And I don't know that there's enough on paper for a high school kid to want to jump to Florida right now, especially with the uncertainty around Coach Napier's job. Now, figure out a way to beat Georgia, or figure out a way to upset Texas, Before we go on, I want to give BetUS some love. You can go to BetUS and use our code YouTube150 for a 150% bonus on your first deposit. Your second and third deposits are still a 125% deposit bonus. All of that up to $2,000. BetUS has a phenomenal customer service and great lines. If you haven't bet with them yet, get to it. Appreciate BetUS for their support. Go check them out. That temperature really gets turned down on that seat, and that is appealing to recruits. So then that 51st ranking is going to move up, right? Kids want to play for the University of Florida. They want to wear that logo on the front of the jersey. They just also want to know who their coach is going to be next year. They want to know that they're going to play for a team that's going to be competitive in the majority of their games. I still think that can be this team, but they're going to have to pull up some upsets. I don't know if beating a bad Kentucky team and beating a bad Florida State team, a really, really bad Florida State team, and then pulling just one upset, it would have to be LSU or Ole Miss, something like that, is enough. But maybe it is, I think it comes down to how it looks. Does Florida play in all of these games really close? They don't beat Georgia, but they hang. They go to Austin. They don't beat Texas, but they play them close. Then let's say they steal LSU and they play Ole Miss close, but they lose, and then they beat Florida State. And DJ Lagway is showing us a glimpse into the future. And this defense is playing up to that Gator standard. And some of these young guys are showing these flashes of what they could be. That's where it might be enough to be 6-6. If Coach Napier can sell us, we talk on this channel a lot about you got to sell me hopes or you got to sell me wins, right? And it's hard for a third-year coach that's not winning to sell hope. But if he's able to give us a glimpse into the future with these young guys, and they show toughness and they show cohesiveness, and they're still fighting for him and for this logo, and you get 6, I totally see a scenario where they keep him, right? It's going to depend on the optics. How do these games lose or look? Not do you win or do you lose necessarily. How do you look in this game? Was the coaching competent? Is it like the Tennessee game where everybody is clicking on all cylinders, but the play calling is garbage? Not a good look. Is it like Miami or Texas A&M where it's like we're not even in it from the jump? Not a good look. Or is it like Kentucky where they completely dominate? Or UCF where they completely dominate? Optics matter here. I've continued to keep the Napier situation updated on my Patreon. We're growing over there, and I would love to have you. It's patreon.com/Allie Peak if you would like to support and get more updates behind the scenes. So, okay, what I need to know is, what are your thoughts? Is it a hard and fast number, like he's got to make a bowl game or he's got to get 7 wins? Or is it optics, right? Do they just need to show effort, show improvement, show us glimpses of the future, show us fight? We've seen some fight the last couple of weeks. I was probably one of the harshest critics at the beginning of the season where there just didn't look like enough effort on defense. I don't see that anymore. This team is playing hard. I said this in another video. I have some questions on what took so long and what changed at the bye week, but I'm just glad it changed. This defense looks completely different now than it did at the beginning of the year. Optics do matter, but is it enough? I want to know what you think down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Again, thanks to BetUS for partnering with us on this video, and in all kinds of weather, go Gators.